All right, so welcome to Am I Tweeting to Myself? Start Winning on Twitter. I'm Danielle, this is Brody, and we've got Marianne. So this is the first Creative Living Works webinar, and let's get started. So my name is Danielle Festa, and I'm the founder of Creative Living Works. I'm an artist. You can see some of my work behind me. I'm also a designer, both web and print, and a crafter, currently crafting my own wing. And I also am an experienced social media manager. I've been doing it personally with my artwork and design work and craft work. And it's working for a lot of clients, including one that is an international organization with a large following. So I've worked with both small personal accounts and some really big ones too. And I've got with me Marianne Ayala.
Hi everyone, I am Marianne. I am a marketer and also a freelance journalist. I've done a lot with social media over the years, including a lot with Twitter, from running a personal account to consulting for another organization, and I'm currently running my organization's account. So hopefully you can give you some helpful tips as we go along.
Awesome. I wanted to give 12 tips that can really increase your Twitter presence without monopolizing your creative time. If done right, it can really be a powerful tool for artists, designers, musicians, writers, and really creative professionals of all industries. But it can be intimidating and it can be a time suck. So it's important to set up limitations and a schedule that works for you. I really suggest about 10 to 20 minutes a day. And if you pair it with something that you do as a routine, maybe after you get out of the shower while you're waiting for your hair to dry, or your first cup of coffee in the morning, then you'll start to really structure it within your day without letting it get out of hand. And if you're the type of person that gets distracted easily or has ADD of any form, Twitter can be, a black hole. So I suggest setting a timer, your oven timer, or I use an accounting program called FreshBooks, and I time myself that way. And then you'll know when time is up and it's time to move on with your day. So you can do the creative things that you love to do and that you're actually talking and tweeting about. And so let's get right into it. Tip number 1, first impressions count. Taking the extra time to upload a cover photo, your profile photo, and a short bio is really going to make a difference, because just like in everyday life, people are going to make the decision quickly, whether to follow you or not to follow you, whether they think you're interesting or if they think you're going to be an annoyance on their newsfeed. People want, just as you should want, your Twitter feed to be full of things that you want to see. So present yourself as someone that you would actually want to follow. Marianne, what's your take on what an interesting bio would be?
I think the bio, even though it's something that's really short, it's worth taking the time to get it right, because that's the first thing people see aside from your profile photo, your icon, when they go on your Twitter page, because that's your one chance to really reel them in. So you want to be either funny or engaging or provide some sort of additional flavor in addition to explaining who you are and what you'll be tweeting about.
Yeah, I agree. And tip number 2 is follow the right new users each day. So one thing you might, you might sign up for Twitter and they prompt you to follow some people, and then you've stopped actively growing your network. That's where a lot of people fall short with Twitter, and they're wondering why no one's following them. Well, you actually have to initiate the following too. And sometimes that'll work. You'll get people that will follow you back right away, and later on I'll talk about how you can unfollow the people that do not follow you back. But I've done an example below. Identifying similar accounts is a really good way to look for followers, because if there's an account that's similar to you, similar interests, the people following them would likely be interested in your own account. So I've got an example here. Her name's Pam Hawks, and she's a portrait artist, contemporary. So that's similar to my own artwork. I will go through and I will click on her account, then on her followers. You can see it underlined because that's where I'm clicked. And then go through and follow the people that I think are worth following. You can see the first one I put an X because he has no profile photo and no cover page. And it doesn't mean that he's not or I think it's he, that they're not worth following, but they didn't take the time to set it up, so I'm not going to take the time to follow them. And then the next two, I can clearly see that their interests are aligned with mine. And there's also a feature called recommended followers on your own account. It'll say suggested followers. A lot of times those are relevant, especially if you're continually following new people that are of like interest. Twitter will start to pick that up and give you suggestions that are legitimate, but do avoid any kind of spammy accounts, explicit accounts. You can usually tell by the photos, the blank ones like I mentioned, or off-topic profiles.
Mm-hmm. And I think,
Mary, do you have suggestions on that?
Yeah, I think the spam accounts or the explicit ones you don't want to follow are usually pretty easy to tell, either by their photo or if you just look through the first few tweets. So it's important, especially in the early days of your account, to really vet the people you're following. Don't just start clicking away, because you don't want other people to look through who you're following and then you're following some sketchy characters on there. So it's a good idea just to make sure everything checks out.
Definitely. The other thing is it will cloud your own newsfeed if you're following people. I followed some people accidentally, and content you don't want to see is popping up, and that'll probably deter you from getting on Twitter as much. So, tip number 3: find your niche. So, a lot of creative professionals or a lot of industries will actually use what are called chat hashtags. And they usually are on a certain day or a certain time. This is a really good way to get onto a hashtag. It will be everybody in the same interest. So, for example, there's Freelance Friday, which is obviously on Friday. Handmade Hour, which I believe is on Wednesday evening, but it's in the UK. So it's interesting, when you do your research, you're going to want to make sure what part of the world it's in, so that if it is an hour, you know which hour it actually is. And then this is a good way to have live conversations. You can see other people, retweet them, and use your own hashtag during that time. And the other way you can discover people that are like you is hashtags like art, music, kind of the generic ones. And once you find people that are aligned with your own interests, you can add them to a list. And you can do that with the little gear on someone's profile and click add to list. And you can call your list whatever you want. People are going to be able to see the name, so you want to keep it something relevant and appropriate. And I listed a URL here. It's called tweetreports.com. And then you can do /Twitter chat schedule to find out, to get some ideas on what kind of hashtags are out there for the chat schedule. So when in doubt, be visual. Marianne, what's your take on this?
I think, especially just the way social media is moving lately with Instagram and Pinterest, that visuals are what draws people in. And I found on my company's Twitter account, any sort of visual from a video to an infographic really boosts engagement. So, and it doesn't even have to be, unique content. I can post someone else's infographic, and I'm always sure to credit back. But that just really enhances the amount of feedback and interaction you get on that particular tweet. So I would recommend doing that as often as you can. I don't think that's something you can overdo, as long as it's useful content.
Absolutely. And as artists, if you're sharing your own original work, I really suggest taking the time to put a watermark in. That could just be your name with a little C, could be your website, or if you have a signature or a logo, put it in. Don't make it overly distracting. You want people to be able to see your work still. But there's a website called umark.com where you can actually do it online, or you could use an editing program like Photoshop or something like that. But you're going to want to make it interesting for people. When I'm going through the feed, I'm always retweeting the ones that have photos and just skipping over the ones that don't. It is the way that we work, and that's a great opportunity for people like artists that are already visual or crafters that are selling work. It can be a really great way to get people's attention. And videos too, like if you just add a link, it should embed it, at least from YouTube and some of the other major ones. And also you can see the chart on the right. This is actually, using it within Twitter, making sure you upload it through Twitter, it's 94% more likely to be retweeted. Versus if you're using Instagram and you're having an auto tweet go out, it's better than nothing. But if you can take the time to go into Twitter as well and load it in that way, it's much more likely to be retweeted or favorited.
Hashtags are really a great way to get yourself out there and to also see other interesting content to see what other people are doing. So we would recommend using between 2 and 3, because beyond that, you don't really have much space left for your actual tweet, and then social is a little desperate, like you're trying too hard. So choose the best 2 or 3 hashtags that fit your specific tweet or the audience you're trying to reach. And if you don't know which hashtags to use, you can kind of just you get the feel of it after a while, see what other people are using, other art or freelance specific hashtags. You can also go for a generic one like the city you're in, but it's harder to get that specific audience you're after when you do it like that, but it's still a way to get in front of people. And then if you're doing a specific event or program, you can create your own hashtag and generate that and send it to your followers so they can use it too, and they can engage in that hashtag on their own.
Yeah, and then tip number 6, manners, please. It's actually an interesting study that when you use please, the word, either pull out or PLS, there's a lot more action on that tweet. So always be curious and see if you can fit please in there. Please retweet or please check out my work. And it's also polite if people are mentioning you or retweeting you to interact with them as well. Just kind of the everyday manners that you would use in real life, you should use on Twitter and thank people and that kind of stuff. So tip 7, follow the worthy. We talked about this a little bit before when trying to find new followers. The other thing you're going to want to do every day is go in and see who has followed you since you last followed it. And you may not want to follow everybody back. I have some examples at the bottom. Sunflower Bakery and Cafe, they seem legitimate. I don't mind looking at, some nice food items, but they seem legitimate. The middle one, they don't have their bio and they don't have a cover, but it looks like from their photo that they are an artist. So it can be up to you if you want to follow them or not. You can always click on their profile too to get more of a sense if you've got more time. But if you're trying to work on keeping your time at a minimum, just skip right over. And the third one is a good example of a marketing account that is a bit spammy. You want to stay away from those that are trying to get you to buy followers. That's not real. They're not going to be valuable followers, and they'll increase your number, but it's not really going to help you out. Interestingly enough, I like to use my laptop monitor versus mobile, just because the way it is right now, I know it changes all the time. So right now you don't actually see the description. You only get their username and their photos. So, it can make things simpler if you're able to just, instead of clicking onto their profile, see it there. And, don't talk about anybody that says their tweets are funny. They're probably not funny. They're probably sticky. So you can avoid that. So nobody likes a one-way conversation in real life and in Twitter. When you visit your Twitter feed, it's a good idea to scroll through and interact. Do some retweets and some favorites. This should be part of your daily routine. On the left, I kind of show that the first one's a good one to retweet. We've got the visual of artwork, and it seems like a nice little tweet about their art show. So I retweeted that. The second one, although it's adorable, is not quite relevant. And you can do some cute animal photos once in a while, but that's just an example of making sure that your feed is branded to the interests that you're putting out there. And Marianne, do you feel like using messages? What's your take on that?
I found that for the most part, when you're communicating with people on Twitter, you can do everything in a private forum, a public forum. The direct messages, they have their purpose. That if you want to give someone your phone number, or if they have some sort of complaint that you want to handle privately, that's when direct message is good. But otherwise, responding to people publicly is a great way to interact with them and maybe even inspire other people to get involved in the conversation.
Yeah, I agree. I tend to not even go into my messages. Once in a while I will, but you do get a lot of spam messages and just people automatic messages. So yes, it is better to do kind of the public stuff. Okay. So flush the unfollowers. I mentioned before that you're going to work into your routine following new people all the time. But when you're doing this, you may be following people who are inactive or who have just chosen not to follow you back. You can't, lose sleep over it, but sometimes that happens. Some people aren't as good about keeping up their schedule and following back the people that have followed them. So what I like to do is once a week, I use a website called TweetPie, and it's free, and you just go in each page, you click unfollow on everybody that I like to do, if it's been a week since I followed them. And you can also see when they last tweeted, and you can feel better about why they're not following you because it's been a year since they tweeted and that kind of thing. But you want to keep your ratio of who you're following versus who's following you pretty even. And Twitter also does limit the number of followers that you can follow without them reciprocating. I believe it's 2,000. And Marianne, do you use are there any other programs out there aside from TweetPie?
Yep, I currently use TweetDeck, which is great for Twitter management uses, but it also shows you who's following you back and who isn't. And then in the past, I've also used Hootsuite, which is HOOTSUITE. It does some similar actions to TweetDeck, and it lets you see who's following you back and who's not. So those are good as well.
Nice. And I think you mentioned for tip number 10, those sites also do scheduling, which is the other part that I wanted to talk about. You can fill in the blanks. If you're not able to tweet every day, it's a good way to keep your presence consistent, and you can play around with different times. So if you're somewhere else, in the afternoons all the time, you can try scheduling a tweet for the afternoon and see how that time of day makes a difference on how your tweets are being interacted with. So, and I use a site called Clout, which also does the same. It lets you schedule. On the left, I have an example of the way they lay it out. And you can see they actually recommend best times to share based on the people that are following you. And repetition is okay. So you can see I started to put in a tweet at the top. I might do that 3 or 4 times over the month. And so see what you can do. See how many you can set up. Try it for a week or try a whole month of tweets, and then you won't have to worry about not, losing out on your audience because you'll always have a presence up there. All right, link me up, Scotty. It's real important you want to give people an action. So a link is a way for them to interact and to go somewhere. You don't want to overdo it, but when you are linking, it's good to shorten them. I use Bitly. Marianne, you use that right as well, right?
Yep, love Bitly.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
Yeah, Bitly is great because it gives you a lot of reporting options, so you can see demographics of who's clicking your link and how many people are clicking it, when they're clicking it. So stuff like that, like the more information you have, the better you can tailor your content or understand the people who are following you and engaging with you.
Absolutely. And one other study I found, which was interesting, said that the link should really be towards the 25% mark of your content. So towards the beginning, not the first thing, but if you're able to give a couple words to lead in, add your link, and then a few more to close it out, and some hashtags. That's kind of a good recipe for a tweet because you want them to click on that link and not get distracted by the hashtag or the image link or video link before that. So that's kind of a good way to go. Follow Friday. Marianne, you want to talk about this a little bit?
Sure. Follow Friday is a hashtag that is, I think, one of the most popular in Twitter throughout any genre. It's a great way to engage with people and to support some fellow tweeters that you recommend. And it's another way to get yourself out there, because once you start recommending other Twitter accounts, they'll want to pay it forward and recommend you to their followers. So it's something I get in the habit of doing every Friday. I think it's Twitter best practice just to start getting used to that.
Absolutely. And if you're feeling like you're not getting retweeted very much on your content, you will notice you're getting retweeted here. Mm-hmm. And that's a good way to get your name in other people's news feeds. And then you can use a site called commune.it, and I think that TweetDeck and some that Marianne mentioned do the same thing, where they can kind of point out who out of your followers are the most active, and they may be the more likely ones to retweet you or also be good accounts to recommend, because that's what you're basically doing, is recommending to your followers that these are good accounts to follow. Mm-hmm. You can also just try typing a letter randomly, and it'll pop up with some accounts that you've either interacted with recently or are popular, and that can be a good way to kind of get some ideas. So that was the 12 steps, and I really think that these are effective ways to keep your account active and growing. I started with Creative Living Works in March, and I think I'm around 1,600 followers right now. So just getting into the habit of going in and following new people and doing all the things that I just laid out helped me grow in 4 months or so. So continue to try these things. And also I promised to those on my mailing list that I would give a new coupon at the end of the webinar. So if you use Web1CW, you get 60% off the annual membership to Creative Living Works. And this is a new website, but it's growing, and I'm adding new courses all the time. The newest course is coming this Friday. It's going to be a yoga course taught by Spiridula Politis, and I think it's going to be a very good one for everyone to do, because it's how to stretch and how to alleviate your the kind of everyday stresses and the positions that we find ourselves in for too long. So if you're on my mailing list, I'll be sending out an email on Friday with an announcement for when it's up. Yeah, so thank you everyone for attending. And yeah, I really appreciate it, and hopefully we'll see you on Twitter. Thank you, Marianne.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Have a good day.